I talked about there being different parts of ourself. And one of the things that I encourage people to remember is that, like a family or like a family pet, those different parts of us have relationships to those other parts. I remember first thinking about this when I learned about a theory called internal family systems, where there's a manager part of us that kind of lets the other parts of us do what they need to do, but also kind of, it's the parent in the room. So, what I encourage you to do as you go through this process is just try to notice when one part of you relates to another part. Does one part of you criticize or blame or chastise that part of self? Or is it grateful? I really appreciate the work that you do. Or I know that you're trying to do the best that you can. Does it uplift or kind of try to give it some strategies to help? So imagine, like the wise part of you, the observer part of you, is at the head of a Thanksgiving table. And all around the table are all the other parts of you, right? You have the worker part over here, the friend part over there, right? But then on the other side, you have perhaps the angry part of you that wants to yell and scream, but that never gets to come out. Now, the worker part of you might say, hey, you don't belong here. There's no room for you here. So, what does that angry part feel? Naturally angry, and it wants to lash out. So, it shows up at the wrong times. Now, one of the natural parts of being human is that we have anxiety. And if there is an angry part of you that you're always trying to hold under wraps, of course you're worried about what's going on. Now, if the wise part of you says, I see that you're very angry, and I know that so and so treated you poorly, and that must have felt real bad. I'm really sorry that that happened. The angry part of you might feel validated, and it might feel like it has a place. Then, if you do something skillful, so again, imagine the scenario we're talking about anger, you know, what do you do with all that angry energy? Now, indeed, there's a place to talk about it, but then there's also a place you might exercise, right? You might notice that the anger holds in your chest, right? So maybe doing push ups is the right thing. Or maybe shooting basketballs, right? Because that energy just finds its way out. So, I encourage you to be very curious and compassionate about the conflicts that come up, and actually about really anything in this whole process. Because often, as adults, we want and are very much encouraged to act as if we're experts. And in fact, you are an expert in the parts of you that you normally live, but you're probably still fairly new at the other ones. So be curious, use a beginner's mind. Just be interested, ask questions. And then, like I talked about in a previous video, notice what comes up. And it may not come up right a while, because remember, 10 to 14 days sometimes. And that's okay. And things will happen in the right time, and not before that.